it's recording now. We should start with the darshan, and for everybody who downloads the video, by the way, that's a very cool Hanuman. I've never seen a seated. I mean, all over Jaipur, most of the deities in India come from this Murti Bazaar in Jaipur, and I've never seen a Hanuman like this in a kind of a lotus. It was just one off, and I just grabbed it. Couldn't help it otherwise. How about this for a beautiful darshan to start our Svādhyāya? Check that out. Pink and black. That's very dashing, isn't it? Cool. There's an Alice darshan. All right. So we start with our Svādhyāya. Pick up. Yeah, I'm sorry. Everybody's been sick. It's been horrific over. I don't know about in America, but I don't know if I had two flus, one after the other, and you can tell I had must be strep throat. It's just awful. It's like swallowing barbed wire. So I'm still recovering from that, actually. But we will forge on and trust that Sri Bhagavan will take our consciousness from the mundane identification with the body and situate us in the transcendental world of the Bhāgavata Purāṇa. And we're in the Kapila. We're going to have kirtan. Yes, sorry, Jessica. Let's replace spin. Jessica's like, when are you going to shut up and let me do my kirtan? Go ahead, Jessica. Over to you.
No, never.
Where's your cat? You got to put your cat on your shoulders.
I know, he's here. He may join us. Let's
All
see.
right, fair enough. Off we go. Okay.
So if everyone could just mute your microphones so there's not cross noise.
Oh, yes, let me mute. Wait a minute. I'm going to mute everybody, Jessica, but you have to put yourself back on because we know what happens.
Yeah.
And I forgot to tell you. Right, participants, mute all. Right, you have to.
Okay. Narayanam namaskritya Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Naram chaiva narottamam Devim sarasvatim vyasam Devim sarasvatim vyasam Tato jayam udirayat Tato jayam udirayat Nashta prayeshva badreshu Nashta prayeshva badreshu Nityam Bhāgavata sevaya Nityam Bhāgavata sevaya Bhagavatyutamashloke Bhagavatyutamashloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. And then we have a little bit of a new tune for the Vasudevaya part. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Thank you so much, Marjarini. Would you mind popping that thing back up, the Sanskrit one? Let's, periodically, let's, sort of absorb our minds in meaning as well as sound. So we pop that on quickly, and the Sanskritists will follow along. And those who are not Sanskritists, why not plant an intention that why not do Sanskrit at some point in its life? Our Sanskrit group is just folks just from the same community, from the same Sangha, and they're all doing, and they're according to their own abilities. In Sanskrit, it's yatha shakti, according to your shakti, and everyone's hanging in there and feeling the better for it. So namaskritya, namaha, namaha, kritya, having done namaha, narayanam, to Narayanam, and what else? Cha, and also Naram and Narottamam. This is a kind of incarnation of Nara Narayana. An incarnation which is, there's not a lot about them in the Shastra, but they're associated in the Gita with Arjuna and Krishna. So it's usually kind of like, that's sort of the Nara Narayanam that we know, but they come in other forms. But so having done Namaha, Gerund, to Narayanam and also Nara and Narottamam, Naram Shaiva Narottamam. Oh, sorry, no, let me take back. Having done Namaha to Narayanam and also to Naram, who is the Narottamam, the best of Nara, who is the best of Naras, the best of humans. So really the incarnation is Nara and Narayanam. So having done Namaha to Narayanam, which is the Ayanam of the Naras, the resting place of all humans, you see the Nara there is still there. Well, you're looking at, if you don't read the Sanskrit, at least you can all learn Sanskrit. It's phonetic. It's not like cuneiform or hieroglyphics. You sit down with like there's 40 symbols and you just learn them. When I first went to India, 1978, I plunked myself down in the Delhi, that big park, what's it called? Forget now. I learnt it in a weekend. It's not like, impossible. So, why don't you at least start with that, everybody? It's your suggested assignment. So having done the Namaha to Nara Narayanam, and don't forget Devim Sarasvatim and the goddess Sarasvati, right? So Sara is a river, and Vati we know is the possessor. Sanskritists know. So the possessor of streams. So she's associated with streams, and that's something I never thought about. Why? But we can check that out. It's also the river, of course, that was no longer exists, but all the texts talk about the Ganga. We spoke about it last class, I think. The Ganga, the Yamuna, and the Sarasvati. Well, there's only two of them now. Where's the Sarasvati? There's this huge riverbed that runs through the Indus Valley civilization, right where Sarasvati is supposed to be.
It happens automatically. Last minute, and then that's what happens.
So the goddess of learning is associated, for reasons I don't know. I never thought about.
It's very easy. She just sends an email.
I just muted you all with the highest respect. So, and having done, the Namaha to the goddess, who's Sarasvati, and we just had a little look at all these names, you break them apart and they have etymologies. And then also Vyas. Well, let's break him apart then. Vyasa, the one who divides. Vyasa is the great composer of, he broke the one Veda into 4, and he broke the, one Purāṇa into 18. And so his name is Vyas, but all names have an etymology. So his name is Vyasa, the one who breaks things, separates. So he separated the one Veda into 4 and the 18 Puranas into 18. The one Purana into 18. So having done the Namahat, of course, the author of the Bhagavata, the person who wrote the Bhagavatam and all the Puranas is Vyas. He wrote the Mahabharata. So Mahabharata by Vyas. Having done all that, tato, then, tataha, Jayamudirayat, one is able to proclaim victory, or one is able to udirayat, like up, like the up, like the udana, prana. So that's a prefix, ud. Come on, everybody, get fascinated by Sanskrit and just do it. So you just say, look, I'm going to do this. Jessica's doing it. She's doing it, and her cat's doing it. Cat is going to be an amazing pandit in the next life. It's going to pop out the womb, just like chanting Vedic shlokas. Now, having done all that, all right. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So, through Bhagavata Sevaya, Sanskritis, feminine, instrumental, through the seva, the service of Bhagavan, right? Not just a bit ringing a bell in the morning, nityam, continual, to the continual service of Bhagavan, nashta prayeshu, in the nashta prayeshu abhadra, in the destruction of all impurities. Okay, let's start again. In the destruction of all impurities, meaning when the mind is pure, how does it get pure? Through the service of Bhagavan, right? Tappurusha, service of Bhagavan, and what kind? Nityam, eternal service of Bhagavan, as a result of which the mind becomes pure. Then what? Bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Bhakti, bhavati becomes, and what kind of bhakti? Naishtiki, fixed, not just a little bhakti when all things go wrong. Oh, Bhagavan, not like that. Fixed 24-hour bhakti arises in what? In Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, in Bhagavan, whose praises are the highest. He's the most praiseworthy. So, okay, putting that together, bhakti, bhaktir, naishtik, fixed bhakti arises in Bhagavan, who is the most praiseworthy, by means of, how do we get the bhakti? By means of service of Bhagavan, constant, and as a result, and by that, the mind becomes, all impurities in the mind becomes nashta, destroyed. Because if the mind is impure, Bhagavan doesn't manifest. It's got to be 100% pure. So that bhakti is not, Bhagavan is the highest object in existence. So no 50-50, no 75-25, no 95-5%, no haggling, 100%. So when the mind is all impurities, lust, anger, greed, selfishness, ego, all this sort of selfish stuff, I, me, mine, all destroyed. How's it destroyed? Through the constant service of Bhagavan. Then bhakti in Bhagavan, the highest, the one whose glories are the highest. And what kind of bhakti? Naishtiki, permanent bhakti, manifests. How about that? 100%. I know you've all heard me say so many times that I can't help it, because it just helps me remember my dear teacher. He would always go, would always say we were all 50-50 wallahs. Aap log sab 50-50 wale hai. How do we get the, oh, there we are. Aap log sab 50-50 wale hai. We Western yogis, we would say you want 50-50. You want to have your bhoga and your yoga. And we would go, but Maharaj, surely 50% is better than nothing. We would try to he wasn't having it. Maharaj, 50% is this something? And he go, nahi, isse kuch nahi milta hai, nahi, isse nahi kuch milta hai. Yeah, go all the way. He was all the way. He expected us to be all the way. He was one of the, he left home. We walked to Vrindavan at 7, like in the 1920s or whatever it was he was born. And nobody knew how old he was. He was probably 100. He walked there and just that's it. Talking about picking up from a past life. And that's it. Found his guru, sat under the tree, did japa for whatever years. And that's the bar. That was the low bar. We would say, Maharaj, Hari kuch to, I'm kuch na kuch karte hai. ऐसा नहीं को ऐसे कुछ नहीं मिलता है ऐसा 50-50 आप लोग सब 50-50 वाले हैं. Right, my friends, sorry. I'm having a bit of a light-hearted moment here. On we go. And we will. I mean, if you meet, bubbas, like real bubbas, I mean, the level of renunciation is absolutely mind-boggling. It's not fake and it's not, artificial and it's not putting on a show. It is total renunciation, and which in and of itself is useless. What's the point in other words, total renunciation is only valuable if a corresponding total renunciation means the mind is not at all immersed in material things. Why? Because it's fully absorbed in Bhagavan. That kind of renunciation is still around. It's disappearing. You can still find that in sacred places of India and amongst the Baba community. It's getting less and less, but it's still something. So one day we will organize a tour to Vrindavan. We will all meet in Vrindavan, and you have to be you have to be mature about it. There's all modernity has really devastated these holy places. They've also been massively affected by commodification and consumerism and all of that stuff. And talk about corruption, goodness through the roof, all of that, and pollution. So you really have to be prepped. But if you're ready to go and be aware of all of that, get rid of all this romantic yoga tourism nonsense. Get rid of all that, all commodification of, it's become a thing now, spiritual tourism. There's a friend of mine doing a PhD dissertation on this, the commodification of spiritual tourism. But, be aware of all that. But still, there's still real sadhu India to be found. And that is something that if that will plant such a samskara in your mind. You know where the bar is after that. It's not sitting on the beach with a guitar and smoking a chillum and chanting a mantra or two. You know where the bar is once you've witnessed that, that kind of level of devotion. All right, my friends. You didn't ask for that spiel, did you? Well, you got it anyway. On we go. Verse 20, Maitreya. Okay, so he's the speaker within the speaker. So you remember the whole thing is Shukar and Parikshit fasting 7 days, and Shukar wanders in naked, and he's going to answer the Parikshit's question. What to do at the moment of death with the mind? What do you hear? What should be heard? What japa should be performed? These are the real question, right? I'm dying. All the other dharma's useless. Right? Wife is sitting there mourning, and kids are right, useless. You're gonna go by yourself. You're leaving your body. Now, what do you do at that moment? No more dharma to the family. Finished. Whatever you did, you did. So that's his question. Most all important moment of death. And then the whole Bhagavatam gets spoken. So within that, there's stories within stories. So we have Maitreya speaking to whoever it is. All right? It's Maitreya speaking to, can't remember. So Maitreya said, after encouraging the couple, right? So now Kardama, remember the story, married this beautiful daughter of the emperor, and And so the condition was, okay, he's a great sage, and depending on what you want for your daughter, right? And nowadays you want your daughter to marry somebody. Most people, most cultures of the world, you want your daughter to marry someone that can support her. I don't know, maybe it's probably sexist nowadays. Women are going to say we don't need support. That's fine. But let's go back a century in the West, or even back to the 50s, and everywhere in the world, right? You have a daughter. I think probably most people today, you want your kids to be protected, safe, right? So some people want to, you want your daughter to marry someone that can support them financially, and all these different ways. But if you're a yogi, you want your daughter to marry someone that can give you liberation. If you understand that this life is ephemeral, it's going to shoot back by in the flick of just a flick of a moment of time, and you understand that the real issue is, where's my daughter going to go at the moment of death? Where's her Atman going to go? So you want to bequeath that. If you're a yogi, you think differently. It's like if you're a businessman, you want your daughter to marry someone that everybody thinks according to their gunas. So if you're a yogi, you think you want your daughter to marry someone that's going to give her liberation. And there's even a verse in the Bhāgavatam: don't be a parent unless you can liberate your kid. Guru nasasyat, na devi nasasyat, pitra nasasyat. There's a list. You can't be a guru. Don't be a deva. You can't be a parent. You can't be a this, and unless you can free your dependence from samsara. There's a verse like that. So the emperor wanted his daughter to marry a yogi, and she wanted it too. They were in love. There's actually an interesting in the story, because there's actually love there between. If you notice, there's love between them. In some Jnana traditions, you don't find that. Love gets like tossed out, like always just Maya, always just Raga. But there's actually love in the story. They love each other. So they're a yogi couple, and but she wants a child, and he says, okay, but the minute you have a child, I have to take sannyas. I'll give you your child. It was a deal. It was, everybody understood. There was a contract, just like any marriage is a contract. Actually, think about it. So now so then, not only did he give her a child, but he realized that she wanted to enjoy bhoga. So he created this whole thing out of his mystic power, the beautiful palace, and she went in the lake, and she got all of her body was rejuvenated, so she could enjoy, right? The body is a place of yoga or bhoga. We know what Patanjali says, 223. So he satisfied it, and it says he loved her, and he just gave her what, as any husband would want to please the wife. So he created all this, like giving your missus a Christmas present. How's it different? So he created this wonderful palace, and they enjoyed and enjoyed and enjoyed. And then she became pregnant, and he said, all right, well, we're going to have to separate anyway. Death is not going to give us that option. So you wanted to be a yogi. Well, this is what it means to be a yogi. You have to break your attachment to me, the husband, and I have to break mine to you, the wife. Oh, what else is yoga? You break all attachments. There's no special clause in there. There's no like little writing at the bottom. Oh, by the way, there's an exception for your spouse if you've been married more than 50 years. No. So, therefore, he's about to go off. And, back then, and still most of the world today, what we now would think of as sexist in the West, women were considered to be more vulnerable, especially if you're living in the forest by yourself. Your husband's gone off. You could do what you want with that, but but that's the scenario, right? So now he's gonna go off, and she says, "Well, what about me? Give me security, my lord," right? And her husband says, she says, "Look, all my daughters, they got 100 daughters." So I don't know what that means. Well, I don't know if I should say this. Well, why not? I don't know if I should say that. But now you want me to say, okay, fine. I don't know where, but it's tucked away in some Ayurvedic text. It says that at the time of conception, if the woman's sexual fluids are more dominant, there will be a daughter. And if the male sexual fluids are, I don't know how they frame it, then it will be a son. So that is, somewhere. I don't ask me where that reference is, but it's out there somewhere. So therefore, I don't. It's not. I'm not saying all. That's Vedic or anything like that. But there is this. This idea, and so the fact that she has 100 daughters, from that point of view, would reflect the fact that she was more desirous. So she had more sexual fluids, and than him. So I don't do anything with that. Don't take that any further than I'm just throwing it out there, because part of what we're doing is also touching on aspects of the broader culture, right? So she has 100 daughters, and there we are. And don't start thinking, oh, hang on a minute, have I got a son or a daughter? Well, what was? Don't make too much of that, my friends. Right? So she says, okay. Daughters are all going to get married. That's what you do with daughters. And what about me? She says, all the daughters are going to find wonderful spouses, and yeah, right. But hang on a sec. Where is she informed that Vishnu is going to be her son? Is going to protect her? Here, he Vishnu, verse 18, the destroyer, right, has entered your womb, O Devahuti. Fear not, daughter of Manu. After cutting your knot of doubt and illusion, he's not just going to give you some material protection, but he's going to give you Jnana first. Then he's going to wander over the earth, but you won't be insecure because you will be enlightened. Of course, that raises the question is, why didn't he do that? But this is all just about a frame narrative. And that this son will be known in the world as Kapila. And Kapila, in all traditions, is known as the founder of Sankhya. Remember, Patanjali Yoga comes out of Sankhya. So there's different Kapilas rendered differently. He's in the Shvetashvatara as a disciple of Shiva, quite different. So the actual narratives are different, but the fact that it's always Kapila as the founder of Sankhya would suggest that there really was a Kapila who was the founder of Sankhya, and different traditions appropriated him and tried to rework him in their tradition. Fine, that's what that's how a historian thinks. But we can safely say that Kapila was the founder of everyone accepted him as the founder of Sankhya. Sectarian kind of appropriations notwithstanding. So therefore, he will wander about spreading your fame, and that's where we left off. So the son will be known as the world as Kapila, will be highly esteemed by the great teachers of the Sankhya knowledge system. Again, yoga was not a distinct school. The idea of the 6 schools of Indian philosophy, I don't think it's more than 1,000 years old. Less. Because the earliest compilations, you don't have 6, you have 13 in Buddhist sources. They're called doxographies. The doxography is a compilation of philosophical schools. And the oldest ones are with the Jains and the Dwaitins and so forth. And, and they're different numbers. They're not 6. And now I don't know exactly when 6 emerges, but I know the older ones are 12th century, Common Era, 8th, 9th, I think is the earliest. So we can say it was after the 8th century. That's new for India. So don't take the 6 schools of Indian philosophy serious. It's just some concoction. Some Brahmin came up with it, and it becomes fossilized. But in the early ones, what am I saying? What's the point? Yoga and Sankhya, they're not separate schools. So when we talk about Sankhya Yoga, the descriptions of it is going to be the practice, along with the metaphysics of the 3 gunas and that whole chart of the Sankhya chart. It's going to be one thing. One is providing the background metaphysics of Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, this is what Prakriti is, blah, 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 blah. Metaphysics, that's more what Sankhya is concerned with. And the yoga says, okay, now we understand that. We understand what we're not. We're not the mind, we're not there, right? How are you going to, my friends, think about this. Hang on, imagine you go to Plato. If someone says to you, okay, stop all thinking. Why is that going to appear to be a sensible thing to do? I mean, you'd think it was existential suicide because when you think of yourself, like Descartes, you think of the thinking self. And that was Plato's move. He has the word psyche. So for Plato, the self is the mind and consciousness. It's not a natural thing to be told that consciousness is different from the mind. The subtle body is so subtle, you wouldn't assume that it was different from consciousness itself unless somebody told you. It's not obvious. Most traditions, there's an external and an internal, and the internal is all the internal, and that's the self. And that's Christian theology, because the Christian theology is Plato. So therefore, you need Sankhya to come along and say, well, hang on a minute, it's not quite that easy. Like you need not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. All right, well, Chitta, is that it? Plato's like, oh, well done, you got to the grand finale. Sankhya, Kapila would say, no, not that either. You're not the mind either. So that's Sankhya's role. Just to be very clear who you are. Once you know you're not the chitta, then it makes sense for someone to come along and say, well, what is yoga chitta vritti nirodha? If you didn't know that you weren't the chitta, and you thought you were the chitta, and someone says chitta vritti nirodha, you might as well get a gun and shoot yourself then. What else would it mean? You're going to cease to be. If that's all you think you are, and someone comes along and says, okay, chitta vritti is like Jim Jones. Let's all drink that, whatever it was, the strychnine, and we'll all die and go up to heaven. That's what you'd think. So you need to have Sankhya to be very clear about what you are and what you're not, and then it makes sense to say, okay, got that. Now I'm going to Now it makes sense to chitta vritti nirodha, because tadadrashtu sarupe vastanam. There's a seer behind the mind. So therefore, Sankhya and yoga were the same. It's just that Sankhya had to sort of get the metaphysics down. Even in India, Nyaya believes that the logicians, you don't mess with the Nyaya logicians, they believed that thinking was a quality of the soul. They didn't do the separation. It's Sankhya that does that. Nyaya doesn't. Nyaya is like Plato. Nyaya says that thought, there's 6 qualities of the soul. Consciousness, fine, everybody agrees on that, but 5 others. Raga, dvesha, sukha, dukkha, prayatna, in the soul. But they would say it's latent. So they go halfway. They say it's latent in the soul, and when it's in contact with the mind, then the mental qualities emerge in the soul, though. Not in a external psychic layer, which Sankhya would say. Even the logicians, see, a human reason, it's reasonable to suppose that thinking is in the self, because the rationalists of ancient India even thought that, along with Plato and the rest of them in the West. So to think that the mind's mental activity is not the self, you need to get that information from revelation, because your own rational thought processes, you're going to think, yeah, the self is the thinking process. So Sankhya is revealed by Kapila in the story here. God has to come and reveal and say, no, actually thinking is really, it seems like it's the self, but it actually isn't. It's a psychic overlay. It has to be told to you because it's not rationally obvious. And it wasn't rationally obvious to Plato and to the Indian rationalists themselves, who also sought moksha, who also, they were mokshavaadins. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah? Just say yeah. Karen, go on, just say yeah. Just nod your head. Just say yeah. Get him to shut up. Just say yeah. We'll get back to this. All right, here we are. So, okay, he will be, right, so this is Kapila, will be highly esteemed by the great teachers of the Sankhya knowledge system. He will wander about spreading your fame. Okay, so after encouraging the couple, Brahma, this is Brahma now, because Brahma comes down. He was the one that introduced, I think, if I rewind the story, he brought the emperor with the princess to Kardama. I think it's all orchestrated by Brahma. So anyway, it doesn't matter. You know who Brahma is. He's got the 4 heads. Not Brahman. Notice the long A, Brahma. And he has there's a mistake here. He's not the swan. His carrier is the swan. It should be, after encouraging the couple, Brahma on his swan. I don't know what footnote 41 says. Doesn't matter, any detail. Right, but you see him in the sky. If you see someone on a swan, that's Brahma. By the way, his consort is Sarasvati, that we chant the mantra to at the beginning. Sarasvati is Brahma's consort. She's the goddess of learning. And he's the first sort of creator of the universe, but remember, not the stuff of the universe, that's Vishnu, but he's the engineer who takes the stuff and then makes the forms, the proto forms of the universe. So after encouraging the couple, Brahma, the swan, the creator of the universe, but remember what that means. We can, just to be clear, call him the secondary creator, because calling him an engineer is a bit too like modern. But he's also a jiva. He dies, and usually they get liberated, but not always. So he is not in Ishvara like Shiva and Vishnu are, or Devi. Even though sometimes you have this nonsense about a trinity, that was Christian missionary projection in the 19th century. Oh, they have a trinity too, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. No. But so Brahma is not on the same level ontologically. Even if he's called Ishwar, he's not Ishwar like Shiva. He's not eternal transcendent like Vishnu and Shiva are. They're eternal, unchanging, transcendent being. Brahma is a post, like president of the United States, and every 8 years you get a new president. Tell me we're going to get a new president, everybody, after this 4 years. Jessica, come on. Well, yeah, get out there and vote. Get your cat. Put a hat on, a mitts, and get him to register a vote. Okay, feeling a bit daft. That's the antibiotics, right? He returned on his swan carrier back to his abode, right? His abode is within samsara. So it's the highest place in the three realms. It's not beyond it. That's Vaikuntha. Beyond samsara, that's the eternal realm made of pure consciousness where Vishnu resides. All the forms are made of pure Brahman. This is in the three realms, right? This the celestial, the lower, and the terrestrial. Sometimes it's 14 realms, depending on if you want to break it up more. So he goes back, accompanied by the four Kumaras. They're great child bhaktas, actually. And they actually can go from the samsara up to Vaikuntha. They actually have access to Vaikuntha. So there are a few beings that they can go from our samsaric dimension, and they can actually go to Vishnu. And why do they come back? Just because they're great teachers, and they come back to help. And that would be a great role to play if we ever got there, to sort of have access to Vaikuntha, but come back and help fellow. That's a bodhisattva of Buddhism, actually, something like that. Where you could be you could enter into liberation, but you won't, out of compassion for all beings. That's such a beautiful. There's nothing quite like that in Hinduism, but Jivan Mukta is pretty close to that. But the bodhisattva has developed that idea of resisting liberation to help others. It's just there's nothing. You want compassion. How about that? That's just such a high state of being. We offer our namaha to all the great bodhisattvas that take that vow. Think about it. Don't we all want to get the hell out of samsara and not suffer anymore? I certainly do, but not the bodhisattvas. So back he goes to his realm, and the highest place in the three realms. Okay, with the four Kumaras, and then Narada is another one. He can go backwards and forwards to Vishnu's realm. And so therefore, these are very special beings. There's 12 of them, and they're called Mahajanas, the great beings that have this ability. So, okay, Vidura, right? So it's Maitreya speaking to Vidura. Vidura is the half son of Dhritarashtra, the blind emperor. Let's not get caught up in this, right? So Vidura, who received instructions from Brahma in this way, right? Kardama, he was told to procreate. That was the thing. This is why he united with the princess. He was told by Brahma, he was an ascetic, brahmachari. But Brahma has to create forms. So Kardama is one of the progenitors called the Prajapatis, who are called upon. This is their dharma. So then he got married. Then he had the princess, and they had 100 daughters, which means that all those daughters are now going to procreate. So now that in this way, humans were generated, something like that. So Kardama then he did his dharma, and he did it to satisfying his beautiful wife with love and attention, and then now he's going to go off again and be sannyasi. So he did as he'd been instructed. After Brahma had departed, Kardama bestowed his daughters to the progenitors. There they are, progenitors. Praja, same root actually. Praja, the Prajapatis. Ja, gen, janma, generation, generate. The gen is a cognate with jan in Sanskrit, to be born, to take birth. Janma, gen. Okay, it's all Indo-European. It's the Greek root, progen. So he now 100 daughters. So I take back what I said before. The reason they were daughters and not men, I suggested, probably inappropriately, the Ayurvedic reference. But now I read this, I see that it was desirable to have daughters because they would progenerate. They would increase the sort of population of the or whatever, the universe. So I don't know what you're going to do with all that. When just remember, we're reading the Bhāgavatam to get bhakti. We're not looking at it like with a scientific kind of kind of like primordial biological view, lens. We're interested in bhakti. So let these beautiful stories just be without dissecting them through our modern knowledge systems, because we're not interested in Vedic biology or the evolution of the species. We don't read the Bhagavatam for information on the evolution of the species. We're reading it for bhakti. So if this conflicts with Darwinism, who cares? We seek something else. Now, when Kardama understood that Vishnu, chief of the gods, had incarnated, right? So Kapila, the son of the princess, her name is Devahuti. When Kardama the father, when he understood, had incarnated, before he goes off to the forest, remember he had the deal, you get a son and I go. But how about that? You give your beloved wife Vishnu as a son. Are you going to complain with that? Don't complain about that. So he approached his son, who's Vishnu, in private, offered him namaha, and addressed him. So this is Kardama speaking to his son, who's Vishnu, in the name of Kapila, founder of Sankhya. At last, after a long time, the gods are definitely pleased with those who are burning in hell due to their own misdeeds, meaning us, in samsara, trapped in these bodies, subject to strep throat and flus and all of this. We're burning in hell due to our own misdeeds, right? Don't be blaming anybody else. Now, ascetics, which he really wants to be, and he was until this whole drama was sort of presented to him, okay, you're going to be a progenitor, and you have to procreate, and because he was so pure, he's brahmachari, so his semen was pure, his mind was pure, so he wasn't just going to bang out some offspring that were good. He was going to get high level beings as his offspring because of his his mental austerity and all of that. So ascetics in secluded places, which is really what he was until this drama was imposed on him, strive to see God's feet by means of pure concentration, samadhi. In undeviating yoga practice, Patanjali calls this Dirghakala Nerantarya. No, Nerantarya. And look at this, my friends, that is matured over many births. If you'll get despondent like me sometimes and think, I've been doing this for 45 years. I'm still an idiot. I'm still got all of these. I'm still grappling with the same things I had as a teenager. Well, what I get out of 45 years, right? If you sometimes get afflicted, which is probably a healthy thing to be, just own it. Doubts are not bad. Doubts are not bad if they help you pull it all apart and put it all back together again. It's good to pull it all back together again, pull it apart and put it back together again. Because otherwise you're a fanatic. Remember this. A fanatic cannot tolerate doubt. That's what a fanatic is. Don't want to hear anything else. Because then it messes up a fanatic faith is weak. And you don't want to, you're hanging on to it, and you can't tolerate any other discordant narrative. Don't have to be like that. Doubt's good. Say, all right, I'm doubting. Pull it all apart. And remember how Indian philosophy progresses. You always consider the alternative. When you read a sutra text, Vedanta Sutra, Nyaya Sutra, you start off, right? This is the position of our school. You don't even say that actually. You start off with all the opposing views and you show how they're problematic. And then you say, okay, we're the last man standing. That's how you do Indian philosophy. You knock everything else down and you think, okay, and this is why we accept this. And that's good to be doubtful. Knock it all down and go start at the beginning. Okay, why am I Bhakta? Okay, because I believe there has to be something. It's not me. There has to. Right, this is how I do it. Why am I Bhakta? Well, because for me, it's ridiculous to think that the universe just came together with no intelligence. It's just just out of nothing. There's a bang, and then there's stuff gets no explanation, nothing, and then just forces bring everything together. 14 billion years, here we are. Ridiculous for me. So therefore, for me, it's just obvious. If that's the opposing point of view, that's ridiculous. So for me, there has to be intelligence, right? And you take that step, okay? And this intelligence cannot be known by because my mind is only the samskaras and prakriti. That's what a mind is. Mind is a net, and all the samskaras, the things we've seen and heard, and all of that goes in our minds, and it cannot do anything else. It cannot, like, other than what's in it, and put it together and come up with conceptual thought. But all of it is formed from the samskaras. But God's beyond that. It's obvious. Because, so then the next step is, okay, then God must, then I can't, I'm never going to puzzle it out. So therefore I have to receive it from beyond. That's an obvious step for me. So then you think, okay, well, where does it come from? And then you have the revelations of the world. So then you check them out. And right, and you go, okay, well, let's see what the Bible's got to say, see what the Quran's got to say, all the right? And then you think, okay, which one of those is, maps onto my samskaric way of thinking about what would a supreme being look? What would, for me, it would be what does love look like? And I look at majesty like Narayan and Vishnu and Yahweh in the Old Testament and Allah, all of these, right? I accept them all. This is all Bhagavan, no doubt. And then I think, but why am I Krishna Bhakta? Because love means you hide your majesty. You hide it in order to exchange with your beloved. If there's power imbalance, how can that be love? Think about your mundane relationship. If your husband or wife is domineering, is that love? It would, so right. Think about with your children when you hide your power and you sit on the floor and you play, choo-choo train. That's love. When you hide your power. So for me, out of all the manifestations of Bhagavan, Krishna, who hides all that majesty and he crawls around in the dust of Vrindavan. And he just does things just to please his devotees, like steal butter and be mischievous. That is of all the revelations that I'm familiar with, is the most exquisite. So I'm a Krishna Bhakta. What somebody else might be a Shiva Bhakta for, whatever you works through, whatever whatever it is. Okay, so that's what you do every so often. Pull it all apart and say, okay, where did I start off? How did I get there? And you get back there, or you don't. If you don't get back there, then toss it all out and do something else then. Find another path. But every so often, having a spring clean of your belief systems is not an unhealthy thing, my friends. Don't ask me what any of that's got to do with this. Right. Ascetics in secluded places, here's what we're trying to say. Strive to see God's feet by means of pure concentration, samadhi. How is this different from Patanjali Yoga Sutra? Method is the same. Bhakti, you're not just interested in your Svarupa. You're also interested in the Supreme Being. So you concentrate on that being. So the stress in Bhakti is on concentrating the mind on Bhagavan, as opposed to the Jnana traditions that are concentrating on the Atman. Both are true, real, noble, wonderful, and the Jnana traditions, bit safer in some way, if you think about it. You know, the idea that you're pure consciousness, and it's kind of rational, right? It's easier for us Westerners, those coming out of Western tradition, and we can't generalize. The most part, it's easier for us to relate to Patanjali, the idea that there's pure consciousness. But then we start running into four-armed Vishnus, and you know, we don't know what we don't. It's with our Western samskaras, it's much harder to relate to that. Maybe in 50, 120 years, 200 years, Indian culture will be much more accessible and prevalent in the West, and it won't be so unfamiliar. But right now, for many of us, it's unfamiliar. We don't, we like it. It's cool, put a little Shiva in the corner of the living room, right? Little Ganesh or a picture over there. But, we don't have to think, to someone said that's God, that's Bhagavan. There's a little, it's a bit of a challenge, right? So therefore, the Jnana traditions are clearly taking roots in the West in the different forms of, the various types of Jnana. And the Bhakti traditions, it's going to take a lot longer because simply it's going to take a lot longer because the familiarity level has to increase. Some of us have those samskaras, and that's fine. We got them from our teachers, or we got them from our whatever it was we got them from. But Bhakti is going to take a bit longer. So, and nothing wrong with that, nothing right or wrong about it. I'm just I reflect constantly on this because of what I do. And that's my present position. So samadhi here is in God's feet, not on the Svarupa of Patanjali. So ascetics in secluded places. Why secluded? Because you don't want distraction. It's quite straightforward. And what was the best place for that in India was the forest. I've said this before. The desert for the early Christian mystics was a desert, including Christ himself, 40 days. So that desert, because it's the Near East, right? You're in the Near East, that's desert. Well, if you're in Jerusalem or Bethlehem or in Palestine, where do you go? You go to the desert. So in India, there's the forest. So it's secluded places, pure concentration, undeviating. Patanjali calls it Nireshvarya. He calls it Dirghakala, Nerantarya, no antara, which is cognate with under. No intervals. Inter. Ner is a negative. Ner antarya. Undeviating yoga practice that has matured over many births. Krishna says at the end of chapter 6. So, don't think this is how we started that whole thing, that, been doing it for so many years, I'm still is an idiot, right? Just plug away at it and don't expect to be, most of us are not going to make it in this lifetime, my friends. But what else are we going to do? Do whatever you can, because next lifetime you start from there. You don't go back. That's huge. It's you're going to be a little kid in school and all the other little kids are going to be swapping candy and chocolate bars, and you're going to be like looking at, you'll be thinking about, what's the point of it all? And maybe maybe there'll be a Hindu temple, and you're just fascinated by it. You don't know why, and you don't understand any of it, but you're fascinated by it. That's your samskaras from the past life. So you do what you can in this life, and you pick it up. Don't think. I say that because sometimes you think, oh, what's the point? I might as well give it up. I'm not getting anywhere. Well, if it takes many lives, which is what the texts say, then at some point we have to keep chugging along. Can't keep giving it up every life. At some point we have to put some progress into it and sort of head in the right direction. So do what you can, and don't get despondent. If you're like me, don't get despondent. Many births. There it is. Highlight it. That same Supreme Bhagavan is today taken birth in the homes of vulgar folks such as us, meaning not high level, super yogis or Brahmins, or I suppose Gardama was a. But this humility. The Bhakti traditions are humble, even though Kardama is the sort of superstar yogi. He'd think of himself as a vulgar, as meaning, kind of just materialist is really what, I don't know if that was the best term to use. Disregarding our offenses, he nourishes the aspirations of his devotees. That's Bhagavan. Because, from a sort of, with Kali Yuga, from the point of view of Satya Yuga, even our high level pujas and worship is all full of faults and mistakes, pronunciation, or all of it, full of errors, because we're the Kali Yuga. Bhagavan disregards all that. Bhagavan broadcasts the fame of his devotees. Normally, devotees are broadcasting Bhagavan's fame. Remember, even the word Uttama Shloke that we chant, Jessica chanted for us, Uttama Shloke, the one who's got the highest praises. That's normally how we think of Bhagavan. But when we become high-level devotees, pure devotees, Bhagavan broadcasts the fame of his devotees. Everything reverses in the highest stage of love. Bhagavan serves the devotee rather than the devotee still serving Bhagavan, but Bhagavan wants to serve the devotee just as much, broadcast the fame of his devotees just as much as the devotee wants. That's love. It's got to be equal. It's got to be bidirectional, not one way. It's not everybody's like Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Namah, Namah, right? And God sitting on that throne yawning away. It has to be bidirectional. And why can't it be fun-filled? Why can't it be joyous? Why can't it be just Krishna, Leela, just pure fun and mischief? And why? What do we think of the idea in our world? What's the most precious moments? Just being goofy with your little kids. What's more precious than that? Or whatever you do in life, you big professor, big businessman, big whatever. What's the most precious memories you have? Sitting on the floor being goofy with your kids. But why wouldn't Bhagavan have a transcendental proto variant of that? And what's Krishna then? Read the stories. So that's what enchants Krishna devotees, and maybe Shiva devotees get enchanted by Shiva's wonderful qualities, and Devi and her wonderful qualities. You fall in love. You can't explain why you fell in love with this one and not that one. So, right. Now, here, look at this. Although you are without material forms, that Bhagavan's forms are not material, they're not made of, flesh and blood, right? It's not God made flesh like in Christianity, no. Bhagavan's forms are made of Brahman. So with those forms, whatever forms please your devotees, Bhagavan takes the form that pleases us. This is love. When you get to the high stage, the pure bhakti, Bhagavan wants to serve you just as much. I gotta repeat that. And he takes the form you want him to take. That's love. And so you take whatever forms please your devotees are pleasing to you. Bhagavan is pleased to please the devotee. That's love. Love is when you are pleased because you're pleased that your devotee is pleased. You're pleasing the devotee or your lover or your beloved, and that giving pleasure. Think of this even our mundane world. If you had to think of what is the highest, most ideal form of love, which may or may not be attainable, I'll leave that up to you to think about. But what is it? It's your pleasure is not anything to do with you. Your pleasure is in the pleasure of your beloved. I think many of us would agree. You can't get higher than that. If you had to come up with a definition of the highest form of love, what would you? Something like that. There's absolutely no self-interest whatsoever. I think we would all agree on that. And just take. And so where do you get your pleasure from? That pleasure of your beloved, and that's your pleasure, and that's Bhagavan. So that's when we say God is love. Well, what does that mean? With soundbite. Well, this is what it means in these traditions. So here's one thing it means: whatever forms please your devotees are pleasing to you. So all these wonderful forms of Bhagavan that we think of in Hindu mythology because we don't know what to do with it, those are forms of Bhagavan, and they're constantly manifesting because they're infinite. And these are forms that Bhagavan takes to please the bhakta. So 1 hour. Okay, I'm gonna run to the loo. Right, stop share. So this computer. Okay, right. So let's do some serious Svādhyāya. All right, now. So I offer namaha to you. So, so this is a sort of the way you express humility. Even your footstool, right? So the feet are considered contaminated in Indian culture. That's where you touch people's feet, and you put your hand to your head because you put the dust from the street, from the feet, you put it on your head, meaning your lowest part, I put on my highest part. So the footstool is just an extension of that kind of a symbol. So even your footstool is always worthy of worship by sages desiring to understand the truth. So Bhagavan's most lowliest. Of course, there's nothing lowly about Bhagavan. It's just a symbolic. It's just a sort of convention. This kind of language. It's a conventional way of expressing humility. So you possess complete beauty. These are the 6 qualities of Bhagavan in the Vishnu Purāṇa. Okay, so in the Christian tradition, you have omniscience, omnipotency are the 2 that are kind of stressed. Well, in the Indian tradition, you have those 2, right? So knowledge is omniscience. You see right, and power is omnipotency. So 2 are the sort of the 2 that are familiar to us in the West are there, but in a list of 6. So one of them is beauty, and that's this book I'm writing. God must have to be beautiful. You have to have a form, my friends. Beauty is form. So that's one of the qualities. God has to be beautiful. Not some abstract principle. God, my God, the Christian theologians just butchered Yahweh of the Old Testament. They butchered him. And by the time, the Council of Nicaea, God had no form, can't have. They got sidetracked by the Greeks. Well, let's not go there. So, what else is God's qualities according to the Indian way of thinking? Potency, okay, that's fair enough. It's a little bit like power. Knowledge, that's omnipotency. Now, fame, right? Who's the most famous person in all ever? It's God, because even if you're an atheist, you're still an atheist vis-a-vis God. So therefore, who's the most famous being ever for all times, all places, all cultures, throughout human history? God. Whether you accept it or if you don't accept it, you still must be famous to reject it. People don't reject me, and I'm not famous. So you've got to be famous even to be rejected. So therefore, fame is one of the 6 qualities of God. Beauty, right? Again, I've stressed that because, as I'm saying, my whole book is really is going to unpack this. And renunciation, because if you think about renunciation, I know we've gone through this before, my friends, but it's in the scripture, we're reading it. If you renounce, it doesn't mean you're somehow aloof and kind of detached and indifferent. It doesn't mean that at all. It means nothing has power over you. If you're God, you have to be supremely independent. Nothing can control you. If you're attached to something, that thing has a control over you. So you have an attachment to something, that thing now controls you. You're now under the control, you're now subject, servant to that thing. So to be God, nothing can have power over you. Anyone would probably accept that. So for nothing to have power over you, you have to be detached from everything. Now, it doesn't mean you don't love, but that's all coming. Nothing controls you. Now, it changes a bit in bhakti. Now, having said all that, I'm going to mute everybody. It changed a bit in bhakti. Very interestingly, in the Krishna tradition, where it is said with full consciousness, like all of this we just said, God has to be supremely independent, full consciousness of that jnana, the bhaktas control God. And the Bhāgavatam knows exactly what it's saying when it says that. Love controls God, but it has to be pure. 100%. He says, Krishna is like a puppet in the hands of the devotees. When the gopis say clap, they clap their hands and say dance. Gopalaji, dance. Gopal. He dances, a little 3-year-old, and just to please them. So if you want to control God and you wouldn't even be thinking of it that way, obviously, we're framing it from down here, love controls God. So the gopis control Krishna. Yashoda controls Krishna. These friends, and they're hungry, and they say, Krishna, we're hungry, and he says, okay, all right, I'll figure something out. His friends control him. All the bhaktas control Bhagavan, and of course they want to serve him. It's not that but he wants to serve them. He's controlled by them. So so at that level, then the discourse changes. the uncontrollable one, the supremely autonomous one, all those things that you associate with God on high, right? That all becomes subverted by love. Very interesting. It's another beautiful thing about the Krishna tradition, when that's on full display. So putting my plug in, putting a plug in. You know, we should get you should hang out with a Ram Bhakta as well, because then you want to see the wonderful attraction of Rams. If you get a chance to hang out with a real Ram Bhakta, you get a window into that. On a real Shaiva, you know, if you get a chance, associate with those who really, 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 really are bhaktas, and to these wonderful forms, just to get a sense of the different flavors and see where your heart lies. But you have to hang out with not some academic, or, you know, you have to hang out with those who really are dedicating everything to their beloveds. And then even if it doesn't do it for you, because your heart lies somewhere else, you get it. And you just revel and just wonder in the wonders of the infinite flavors. The love of God, it has to be infinite flavors, because God is infinite. It can't be just one kind of love. It's got to be infinite flavors. So you've got to find your flavor, my friend. How do you find your flavor? You open your heart up. You look for it. You don't actually look for it. You beg for it, because it has to come to you. No point running around India, getting diarrhea and ripped off. All right. Oh, no. Right. Okay, now. All right, these are the 6 qualities. I offer Namaha to you, Kapila. Your power manifests simply by dint of your own will, right? Bhagavan just wills, and that's it. Any creation, will. Boom. Even in the Bible, right? Ex nihilo, God said, let it be, and bada boom. Let there be light, bada boom. So your own will. You are the maintainer of the worlds. That's Vishnu. Vishnu's the maintainer. Shiva is the destroyer. And this Brahma, who's not even Ishvara on that level, because Vishnu and Shiva are eternal. So when the universe dissolves, well, Vishnu and Shiva don't dissolve. They're in their own eternal dimensions. But Brahma does. He loses his post. And if he's good Brahma, he gets liberated. If he did his yogic stuff, otherwise he goes back and takes birth like everybody else. But normally they get liberated. So, but Vishnu is the maintainer. And you are the 3 gunas, right? What does Krishna say? Devi hi esha guna mai mama mayadura in the Gita. Chapter, I don't know, 8 maybe. Devi hi esha guna mai mama maya. This Maya, and what is Maya? The 3 gunas. Is my Maya. Gita. So are we clear about this? We've heard this word Maya, 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 Maya. What is it? Where is it on the Sankhya chart? There's no Maya stuck. You know, you got these little, you know, lines. Okay, from Buddhi comes Ahankara, and then it splits up in Manas and the Karmindira. Where's Maya? Maya is the 3 gunas itself. That is Maya. So that's Maya. What's avidya? It's the same as the gunas. It's tamas, especially. Not some other thing. What's time? The gunas moving. So all of this space, what is it? It's the gunas. It's only the gunas and Purusha. It's only Prakriti and Purusha. And no other thing. Including like Maya as a thing. No, she's not a thing. She's the 3 gunas, and it's plain as daylight, explicitly stated in the Gita. You are the 3 gunas. Through your intelligence, you absorb the material, right? At the end of cosmic, intelligence means will. You will it back, all of the material manifestation back into your own self. So that's the cyclical creation. It all comes down, it all rests in Vishnu somehow or other. And remember, Vishnu's not there's loads of Vishnus. There's loads of Vishnus. There's not just like one Vishnu. First of all, there's infinite universes. Each one has a Vishnu. But also the tradition is going to say Krishna doesn't have a job. Vishnu has a job. So in a sense, if you're the creator, that's your dharma. Well, that means you're kind of like, you could say, well, it's his will to be that. And the Krishna tradition is going to say, no. Krishna just engages in love. He doesn't do this creation stuff. So he manifests Vishnu to do that. And he manifests Shiva to do the to bring it to an end at the end. And and so forth. And he powers Brahma. He doesn't manifest as Brahma, he empowers Brahma, who's a jiva like us, not an Ishvara. So it's called a Shaktavesha. He gives Shakti to Brahma to create. So these are all the nuances. If you get into like the Puranic worldview, all of these nuances are there, and they're all quite wonderful. And you can just dive into this Puranic universe and remember what's the point of it all. It's not jnana. It's simply to absorb the mind in Bhagavan, because that's what we have to do if we want to have pure bhakti. And without 100% bhakti, then we say have to keep going a bit longer. Same with Patanjali, by the way. You're doing Chittavriti Nirodha. You can't be 99% Chittavriti Nirodha, because that 1% is going to capture consciousness. If you've Nirodha'd 99% of all your samskaras and one is there, what's your consciousness going to do? You're going to be focused on the samskaras. Patanjali is the same. It's 100%. Any of these yoga traditions, 100%, my friends, to get to the goal. And bhakti is no different. 100% bhakti, because with that 1%, it's going to be capturing your mind. And at the moment of death, that 1% is going to pop up. So let's be clear about the goal is. Even if we, have to be chugging along, and remember, don't give up just because you're not 100%. Because you're going to have to come back next life. And how's it going to be any different next life? If you say, all right, I'll make a deal, I'll do 50%, that's really good, and that's it. Well, then next life, what are you going to do next life then? You've still got the other 50%. It's not going away, because you're born with the same chitta. So you do as much as you can and never say, okay, because I can't go all the way, therefore I'll give it up. Because that's what the mind's going to try and trick you into thinking. What's the point? I'm never going to get there, so why bother? No. You get there, and if it takes many lives, so be it. What else is there to do anyway? Now, you are the Supreme Person, the creation, cosmic intelligence, time, and the wise seer of truth. Let's not just read this like that. Let's look at it all. Through your intelligence, you absorb the material manifestation back into your own self. All this is the will of Bhagavan. This whole cosmic cyclicality. And remember, what does Patanjali say? Why is it there? For Bhoga or Apavarga? 2.23. Why is there why is the material universe there to give us? You want Bhoga? Go for it. Infinite Bhogas, infinite pleasures. But what? None of it says going to satisfy. And every action is a reaction. So if we use the world for Bhoga, we're just generating reactions, birth after birth after birth, right? And when you get sick of that, tired of it, exhausted with it, didn't find my deep level satisfaction from it, then the idea of yoga becomes more and more appealing. So that's what it's for. Bhoga, but Patanjali frames it, really, sutra, 2 words. Bhogish, Apavarga, what is it there for? Bhoga Apavarga. So that's why it's there. And, as long as we think there's some Bhoga to be had, well, we're going to keep chasing that. When do we stop? When we realize, I keep doing the same thing, and I'm still not, I still haven't found this bliss that I seek. That's simple as that. Dukkam, why did the first thing? Dukkam, sarvam dukkam, the first noble truth, sarvam dukkam, it's all frustrating. Get it into our head, it's all frustrating. And we were talking this morning, that kind of a narrative is considered depression in an avidya society. So there's the difference in vidya and avidya society is night and day. Yoga, a vidya society, sarvam dukkam, you embrace it. It's the first noble truth. Avidya society, you start walking around, dukkam, you're on antidepressants. Keep that in mind. Our therapists, all this therapy, it's grounded in an avidya model. Make sure that's what you want. Because whatever they give you, it's going to be from the point of view of material, body, mind, well-being. And nothing wrong with that. But if you're a yogi, you don't live in a body-mind universe. You live in the Atman-based universe. Everything is the opposite. Just keep it in mind, that's all. All this mental health and being good in your body, nothing wrong with it all, but it's all just mundane sattva. It's not the goal. I'm not saying it's bad, but it isn't the goal. And it's kind of yoga, it's kind of overtaken the yoga world a little bit. Oh, yoga, you feel good in your body, mind. And that's not what yoga is. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the goal. It's good, use it, right? But don't think that's the goal. It's not. Right now. So you're the supreme person, right? Bhagavan is also Purusha, pure consciousness. He's not Prakritic. What is a Purusha? Purusha is that which is not Prakritic. In the Sankhya Karika, it says Prakriti is this. It's the three gunas, and it has that whole chart. You all have at the back of your books, 25 things. And then it says, he, the Purusha, is the opposite. That's all it says. It's not the gunas. It's not made of matter. None of that. So therefore, God is on that side of the fence. So God is a Purusha. He's just as a supreme Purusha. Well, what does that mean, supreme? Well, he creates, sustains everything, right? The little jiva doesn't create, sustain nothing until you get a body, and then you maybe sustain your body. But even then, it's completely under the control of the gunas. So it's a supreme Purusha, but still a Purusha creation. Right, cosmic intelligence is the first evolute of Prakriti is Buddhi. If you look at your Sankhya charts, Buddhi comes out of Prakriti. You haven't, someday we'll look at that more closely. Look, there's evolutes. I have a bit of thinking to do still on all this, which I'm looking forward to doing. In this chapter, actually, the chapter on Sankhya, it's nice to get a kind of a much fuller metaphysics of Prakriti, which we get. I don't know if we'll do it right away in our time together. Time, what is time? It's the glance of Vishnu. The glance of Vishnu moves the gunas. What is time? Movement. Who is the prime mover? Right? Aristotle just couldn't figure it out. Aristotle couldn't figure it out. He understood planets are moving. He looks up in the sky, planets are moving. Why are they moving? Well, there's these forces. Well, other planets are moving these planets, and at some point, where's the stop sign? There has to be something that moves everything else, and that thing can't be moved, because if it's moved, then what's moving that thing? So you have to have a prime mover who doesn't move. Right? This is what happens when you rely on logic instead of revelation. Your mind can only function according to your perceivable reality. So in perceivable reality, things move because something moves them. Right? Gravity moves the planet. So you say, okay, things move. Right? What's moving that thing? Some other thing is moving it. Now you can't just have an infinite regress. At some point, there has to be something that moves this chain of movement that itself is not moved. That's what logic's going to tell you. And Aristotle was a logician. Right. But that thing can't even be, think this through. Aristotle says, that thing can't even be aware of the world. Because if you're aware of the world is moving, your awareness is going to be moving along with it. So now you're moving. See that? So Aristotle's God is not even aware of the world. You pray to Aristotle God, he doesn't know you exist. That's where you end up if you try to use human reason to understand God. You end up with an unmoved mover. What does he do then? He self-reflects. Like a narcissistic Patanjalian Svarupa Vastanam kind of being. That's where logic's going to take you. You want that? You want to puzzle out God with your human reason? I think we can all agree Aristotle had a pretty good, Shakti, Buddhi Shakti, and that's where you end up. And so therefore, the Vedanta tradition says you get nowhere if you try to understand Bhagavan with human reason. You end up with some narcissistic, self-absorbed prime mover. So therefore, take your pick. You can have Aristotle's prime mover, or you can have Krishna stealing butter and feeding the monkeys, or or you could have lots of other cool forms of Bhagavan like Shiva. I shouldn't over. Okay, now, so therefore, that's time, is movement, and that requires the mover. And in this tradition, they would agree with Aristotle only halfway. They would say, sure, you need something to move, but that's just the glance of Vishnu. And that's, and Vishnu is consciousness. So therefore, movement doesn't exist in consciousness. So therefore, Vishnu being pure consciousness, see, Aristotle thought the prime mover is only made of matter because that's all he knew, matter. Anyway, let's not go there. And the wise seer of truth. So, we're little seers of truth. Notice I use the capital S here. What truth do we see? Svarupa, avasthanam. The most we can get to by our own yogic power is we can have an experience of pure consciousness. And that's Patanjali. The great gift of Rishi Patanjali. So that's our seeing. Well, Bhagavan sees everything. So he's also a seer. Why isn't he a seer? If he wasn't, what does omniscience mean? So he's the wise seer of truth. Now, so all of these words we can unpack, my friends, and that's what a traditional Svādhyāya does. You unpack everything. And what are you doing? You're surrendering your intelligence to Bhagavan in the form of Shastra. This is a manifestation of Bhagavan, just like Japa is another manifestation, just like Murti Puja, another. There's loads of different ways that you can absorb your mind in Bhagavan. And for some, this doesn't get better than the Bhagavatam. Today I'm submitting a request to you, O Lord of Beings, right? So he says to Kapila, following the path of the roaming ascetics. That means you're going to wander around like, remember Shukra in the beginning? With Pariksha naked? As you just roam. You're absorbed in the bliss of yourself. You're not even aware of anything else. Remember the story of the little young girls in the river? You're roaming. And maybe someone gives you an apple, you eat it. Or you pick a fig off a tree. Whatever it is, you maintain your body. Or you don't. That's the path of the roaming ascetics. I wish to wander forth, he says to his son, free from sorrow. What's the sorrow? Sorrow is only but when body-mind related. You lose a possession, you lose your body or your mind. Sorrow is embedded in avidya. But when you're focused on the Atman, there's no sorrow in the Atman, there's pure blissful consciousness. And he says, I want to wander around, but I'm not leaving you. He says, I want to be connected to you in my heart. You'll always be thinking of this form of Vishnu. So you don't have to be physically, it's wonderful to be physically present when there's an avatara, but the actual Bhagavan can manifest in the heart, separate from your Atman. And not your Atman and there's Bhagavan. This is not Advaita Vedanta, my friends. Bhagavatam is not Advaita Vedanta. So you place the Atman, with your chitta, that's your vehicle, as long as you're embodied, you place, when you say in the heart, it means in the mind. You constantly think of Bhagavan in the mind, whether it's your murti, whether it's your mantra, it's always in the mind. So all my obligations have been erased by you, right? And all my desires fulfilled. Once you encounter Bhagavan, that's it. All these other desires are just trivial, they're pathetic. You just wonder, how the hell did you get caught up in them all? Just like when you look back and as a little child, you think, how was I so attached to my teddy bear or my whatever it was? So now Kapila speaks. Whatever is spoken by me in worldly or spiritual matters is authoritative for people in the world. Well, you're Vishnu, you're allowed to say stuff like that. So worldly means he outlines all the prakriti, all the 25 elements, spiritual. In other words, all knowledge. This is the reason for my taking birth in your family, to fulfill what I previously told you. I can't quite remember that part of the story, but we can check back. When was the previous? I don't know. This birth of mine, what does Krishna say in the Gita? Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya dushkirtam, dharma samstapanartayam, sambhavami. I am manifest to establish dharma and eradicate adharma. 4th chapter of the Gita. He's going to say the same thing. Instead of saying dharma, he's going to say sankhya. So Krishna in the Gita tells us the reason for his incarnation to re-establish dharma. That's why the Gita is all about action, act. Oh, fight, Arjuna. You have to fight, righteous, fight. It's all about action. And Krishna comes right out and says it. I have come to establish dharma. Kapila's incarnation is a bit different. He's coming to establish jnana, because Sankhya and jnana is the same thing, synonyms, right? So but it's the same format as the Gita, where Krishna says this birth of mine is to establish dharma. Kapila says this birth of mine in this world is to re-establish. Same with Krishna. He says it was lost. If you know the 4th chapter, this yoga got lost. Yoga nashta parantapa. Sakalena ha mahata yoga nashta. After a long time, it got lost. Re-establish. It's, remember, knowledge is not new, it's eternal. What's Patanjali say in the first verse? Atha yoga anushasanam. Continue the teachings. So re-establish them, continue them. So the knowledge systems are always flowing in human society according to time and place. Okay, so we get the same thing here. Then no one's making stuff up. No one's having an enlightenment moment and coming out and saying, I have discovered a brand new truth. Nah. In the Vedanta way of thinking, if it's true, it's eternal. That's what truth is. That's the word sat. Sat means present continuous, ongoing. It's always been. That's what sat means. Ising. Sanskrit is. It's the present active participle of us to be. So the sat is that which always is. Not that someone stumbles upon it. Oh, no, that, and then comes back and says, I have found the truth for human. No, anybody says something like that, don't touch him with a 10-foot barge pole. Truth is eternal, sat. So therefore, what did the great Krishna in the Gita, Patanjali, and now Kapila say? I've come to re-establish, reaffirm, right? Re-establish, not present something new. That's a no-no in Vedanta. There's nothing new. Okay. Now, right. So what is it? Okay. Now, how he defines what Sankhya is? This birth of mine in this world is to re-establish the teachings of Sankhya. What is it? The analysis of the ingredients of material reality. And that's the charts you all have in the back of your Yoga Sutra books. You've all seen the charts with the 25 little family, tree with its branches. That's specific of the incarnation of Kapila, right? Ram, what does Ram come to teach? Dharma. What do the different avatars come to teach? Whatever it is they come to teach. What does Kapila come to teach? The analysis of the ingredients of material reality. And you have to know that before you do yoga. Because yoga is about blocking them all out. Nirodha, dharana, dhyana, stop. Well, what are you stopping then? You have to know what you're nirodhaing. What is it you're nirodhaing? Chitta, what is a chitta then? You have to be clear. Otherwise you end up at the Plato. You think chitta is the Atman. So Shankar comes along and very clearly says, this is what this is and this isn't. The Upanishad's called neti, not eti, not eti, no, not this, not this, not this. It's the path negabia negativa. All right, my friends. I'm losing my voice. It's because I'm yelling. We've gone through this many times. Yelling. Okay, now. So this knowledge, so remember, Sankhya and Jnana, even in the Gita, they are synonyms. Jnana is Sankhya. Sankhya is Jnana. Which you have to know what is and what isn't the self, for example. You have to know what is the Sat and what is the Asat. That's both knowledge. The Sat is that which never changes. What is it that never changes? Purusha. What's the Asat? Ever-changing. What's the Asat? The gunas and all the products of the 25 elements. That's Asat, not because it's not real. Advaita Vedanta would say it's not real. Sankhya would totally and utterly reject that. Sankhya and Advaita Vedanta are in opposition. They agree that everything's temporary. Agreed. Where do they differ? Advaita would say it was never there in the first place. It's a superimposed illusion. Sankhya would say that's ridiculous. Of course it's there, but it's ever-changing. So Advaita Vedanta and Sankhya, don't try to put them in the same boat. Their metaphysics are in complete opposition to each other. Okay? Sankhya, the world is real. And its forms are real, but they're temporary. Advaita, forms are temporary but unreal. Mithya, Jagat Mithya, Brahman Satyam. And we tend to, we tend to conflate everything a little bit in the kind of, until we read a bit more philosophy. There's nothing wrong with being, don't start. Jnana is important, my friends. Bhakti is built on jnana. Don't be sticking your nose up at jnana. You know, it's not the goal for bhakti, but you have to have a solid foundation of jnana. And that's why the Bhāgavatam gives all the jnana. In the Gita, Krishna gives in the beginning, he gives jnana. Before he talks about bhakti, he doesn't even start talking about bhakti to halfway through the text. Where's bhakti? There's no bhakti in chapter 2 or 3 or 4. Bhakti comes like 8, 9. And what's in the beginning then? Jnana, jnana, jnana. This is the Atman, it's eternal. Da, 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 da. This is karma yoga. Do your action. Don't be attacked. No bhakti there in the first few chapters. Occasionally the odd reference. But bhakti takes over in, 4. He says, okay, this is who I am. And then really it's 7, 8, 9. So you've got to have jnana, and then you build on that. Now, so this knowledge is, okay, the ingredients. Now, this knowledge in the matter of self-realization, knowing the self, is highly esteemed by those desiring liberation from the subtle body. Subtle body, that's the chitta. Not just the gross body. You're going to be liberated from the gross body anyway. Subtle body. So on we go. Okay, subtle, sukshma sharira. The subtle body stays with you through your entire time in samsara. You have the same subtle body. Otherwise, how would you, your karma from a past life, how would it connect to this life? The karma's in the subtle body. If you change your subtle body every life, there'd be no connection. Karma's in the subtle body, and it comes with you. And then it pulls the karmic reaction towards it. It covers your Atman. So moksha is actually being free of the subtle body. All right. So this path towards realization of the Atman is difficult to understand, and so it had disappeared. Even back then. As it disappeared in the West, it comes over the West, and then it becomes commodified yoga. Then with the jnana gets disappeared, and we have crystals and running water, and I'm being very naughty, right? Where's the jnana there? Well, we have a nice, spas and bit of yoga, and it's all good sattvic stuff. Got nothing to do with jnana, though. So it disappears. There we are. Lost due to the passing of the ages. What to speak of the traversing of the oceans? If it's lost due to the passing of the ages, what's it going to do crossing over the Atlantic? Please know, says Kapila, that I had assumed this body to re-establish it. So this is what the avatars do. Some of them just come to kill bad guys, but there's always an element of re-establishing Dharma. Go as you please, says Kapila to his father, with my approval. Overcome death, right? Because once you attain the Atman, you've overcome death. You put your foot on the head of death in one type of phraseology, which is so hard to overcome. You can't overcome it. You die, right? But then you come right back. So that's what you have to overcome. By dedicating all your actions to me, bhakti. This is how you overcome it in a bhakti tradition. Worship me to attain immortality. Krishna says it in the Gita all over. The manmana bhavavat bhakto majjiti mam namaskuru. Worship me, namaha me. Do everything to me. Then you'll come to me. It's in the Gita all over the place. I am self-luminous, the hidden refuge within all beings. Without anxieties, you will perceive me, the Supreme Atman, in your own Atman, through the Atman. So in Bhakti, you have two kinds of visions. You have the vision of your own Atman, and then there's Bhagavan right there in your heart. It's not the same thing. Advaita Vedanta is the same thing. There is no Bhagavan separate from the Atman in Advaita Vedanta. There's only Brahman. Be clear. Not in Vaishnavism. The world is real, and there is Bhagavan is real and distinct from the Atman. These are the Vaishnava traditions, and they tend to. And the reason they haven't taken, the reason Advaita is so popular in the West, because you can say, well, all of this is fake and false, all these cultural differences, all of this, and we're all this pure consciousness. It's very sad, and it's not that that's not true from a Vaishnava perspective, but I don't have enough time to get into that now, but it's one aspect of reality. The Vaishnava traditions, there is a real God. And why is it that a little bit taking a lot more time to take roots in the West because that God is Shiva, Vishnu, Krishna. In these forms we think of as mythological. Who told us that? The first missionaries told us that. This narrative's been handed down throughout this, the big encounter with Hinduism, with the Jesuits in the 15th century. Hinduism never says we are mythological. Where do you read that? Where in the Gita does it says Krishna says, "Oh no, by the way, I'm mythological"? It doesn't say that. Where does it say that anywhere in the 1 million verses of the Puranas and the Mahabharata? You'd think it was mythological or metaphoric. Some rishi would have said, "Oh, by the way, this is just a metaphor." You don't think some rishi would have come out and said that? So, without anxieties, you're all right. At that time, you will attain the state of fearlessness. I will impart spiritual knowledge, says Kapila, which puts an end to all karma, because when you realize the Atman, you no longer act with desire. You no longer desire anything because you're immersed in bliss. What are you going to desire? Some trivial little Ben and Jerry's ice cream in the forest. You are absorbed in the bliss of Atman. So that spiritual knowledge puts an end to karma. What does that mean? It puts an end to desire, because it's desire that makes karma. I will impart this to my mother. Remember, this is the Devahuti's son. And she was fearful of being a woman alone in the forest. By this knowledge, she'll overcome fear. So he's reassuring Devahuti's husband, who loves his wife. And they had a deal, and he's going to go off now. But he's a loving husband, and he doesn't want to just leave his wife in the forest. So Kapila says, don't worry. The son of Devahuti and Kardama, their son is Vishnu. He said, don't worry. I'll give her fearlessness. She said, let's go back and see. At the end of the last chapter, she says, well, okay, my lord, Kardama, you go. We made a deal. But give me fearlessness, she says. Can you just leave me? You're leaving me. I'm a woman alone in the forest. Can you at least leave me with fearlessness? And he says, don't worry. Kapila's going to come, your son, and it's Vishnu. And here Vishnu, and then here, the son is now telling the father, don't worry, Dad, I'm going to give Mom fearlessness. Okay? So he doesn't quite say Dad. He says it in Sanskrit. Dadaha, I will give Mamaha fearlessness. Abhaya. That's the term for fearlessness. Okay, my friends, we are another 10 minutes. Right, now, Maitreya said, right now we go out to the narrator, and then Kardama, right, the father, the progenitor of species. Remember, this whole drama was because Brahma wanted him to procreate, because he was a pure yogi, and he wanted that purity at the beginning of the creation of species, right? So the Prajapati, the father, Pati in Sanskrit here, the lord of the Praja, of created beings. So Kardama, addressed in this way by his son Kapila, you circumambulate him, right? That you offer your honor, just like you circumambulate temples in India. Joyfully set out for the forest. Right now, he can fix his mind on Kapila, because Kapila's got a mission to do, and so you could say, well, why did he leave his son? Is Vishnu? Why is he going anywhere? I used to ask myself, why is he just leaving? He wants to attain God. Well, God just took birth as his son. He takes birth as his son. He's going to go. I thought that doesn't make sense, but he's fixing him in his mind. It's the same thing, and he understands his father has a mission to perform. So he's joyful because now his Vishnu is going to be fixed in his heart. So the sage, fixed in the vow of silence and absorbed in the Atman, wandered forth over the earth. This is Kardama. Without any company, this is the real sadhu. Without residence, can't stay in one place more than 3 days. Neglecting the sacred ritualistic fire. The Brahmins are mandated to perform the daily that's their dharma. You're a sadhu, no more dharma. So the dharma of the Brahmin, he didn't have to do it anymore. That's the real renunciate. And so we'll do a bit more. And he fixed his mind on Brahman, which of course is Vishnu, which is beyond the real and the unreal. The real is the Atman, the Sat and the Asat. But Vishnu is beyond even the Atman. Although it is devoid of the gunas, right? Brahman is the opposite of Prakriti, and Prakriti is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So what's Brahman? It's consciousness, which is not Sattva Raja. So, although it's devoid of it, it is through Brahman that the gunas manifest, meaning Ishvara Krishna says, I manifest the gunas. How do you experience that Brahman in the form of Vishnu? It can be experienced only by exclusive devotion. How do you experience your Atman? Chittavritti Nirodha. Willpower. Atman. Works. That's good. Bhagavan? No. Fail. Can't do it by your mind control. How do you experience Bhagavan? Surrender and then grace, if you attract the grace of Bhagavan. Completely different. This idea that jnana, karma, they're all bhakti, they're all parts of... No, they're not. They do completely different things. Jnana takes you to your own Atman, not to Bhagavan. Bhakti takes you to Bhagavan. How are they the same? Only in Advaita Vedanta are they the same, because in Advaita Vedanta it's all Maya anyway. So that works for Advaita Vedanta to say they're all the same, not in other traditions. So start to become informed consumers, my friends. Start to pay attention to the nuances of the different traditions, and they take you to different places. It's not all going to the same place. In Advaita it does, because everything's illusion. So in that sense, you end up in Brahman, and that's it. Not in the other traditions. So be informed consumers. We're not the 60s. We're not gullible hippies in the 60s anymore. So start paying attention to the different nuances, Kashmir Shaivism, Buddhism, Advaita, and decide where you fit. But make your decision from an informed place, is all I'm saying. I would hope you will do that. I hope that makes sense to be informed. Because it's been 80 years now since the counterculture, 60, 70 years. Why do I say counterculture? Because there was this big exodus. There's big sort of the big gurus of the 60s. They weren't the first, but that's when really Eastern spirituality became really established in the kind of in the Western kind of cultural landscape. It can be experienced only by exclusive devotion. All right, my friends, I'm still a bit chesty and yucky, and why don't we take questions at this point? Don't have any questions, that's all right, because I'm getting a bit throaty. You can probably hear my voice. Any two participants? So we got Wayne. Go ahead, Wayne.
You said that Sankhya is not Advaita. That's obvious, but is it because it's neither Advaita or Vishishta Advaita because it's not Vedanta? Would that be a
Vishishta Advaita, the world is real. So Vishishta Advaita accepts Sankhya as the metaphysics for the world. It's completely Sankhya. Vishishta Advaita. Advaita Vedanta, the world is unreal. So Advaita Vedanta talks about it talks about Paramartika and Vyavaharika, ultimate reality, and conventional reality. Conventional reality is unreal, but because we all live in it, the world of mountains and planets and tables and chairs, so you have to say something about it. So even in Advaita Vedanta, conventional reality is still Sankhya, but it's ultimately unreal. So all the Vedanta accepts Sankhya as the metaphysics of the world. The question is, what divides Advaita from Vishishta is whether the metaphysics is real or unreal. Everybody accepts Sankhya, not other possibilities. Okay, so let's establish that. Vedanta, the metaphysics of the world, is Sankhya for all Vedanta schools. What's the difference? Advaita Vedanta, because that metaphysics is unreal, they'll talk about it, but only in the conventional world of unreality. It's unreal, but it's still a Sankhya. And the unreality is Sankhya metaphysics, not some other metaphysics. Vishishta is all the way Sankhya. So Vedanta accepts Sankhya metaphysics. Now, in the Vedanta Sutra, there's a rejection of Sankhya not because of its metaphysics, but because some Sankhya schools did not accept Brahman as the cause. They did not accept Ishvara. That's where Vedanta rejects Sankhya, not because of its metaphysics, but because they don't accept some near Ishvara schools that did not accept. You read the Vedanta Sutra rejection of Sankhya. It's not about the metaphysics or buddhi, ahankara, the five elements, or no, doesn't reject any of that. Rejects the fact that they do not put Ishvara in the driving seat of it all. So the difference between Advaita Vedanta and Vishishta, right? The metaphysics of the world is Sankhya. Advaita Vedanta, metaphysics of the world is Sankhya. Ramanuja, Vishishta, Sankhya. What's the difference? Advaita, that world of Sankhya metaphysics is apparent. It's not real. It only appears that way. But it still appears as Sankhya. See the point? In Vishishta, it isn't an apparition. It's a real world, and Sankhya really is what it's made up of. Let's look at it this way. You go to the desert, and you hallucinate there's a mirage. It's not real. But in that mirage, there's a lake and palm trees and water. So there is an apparent reality. But it's unreal. But that apparent reality is an oasis. It's not a jumbo jet, or it's not an airport, or it's not a Grand Central Station. The mirage in the desert is an oasis with palm trees and water. It just happens to be unreal for it now. So this is Shankara. So therefore, there is a logic to a mirage, and mirage isn't just any old thing. The mirage is of a oasis and palm trees. So Advaita Vedanta would say, this world is unreal, but there's a logic to it, and it is Sankhya. This world is, according to the metaphysics of Sankhya, it appears that way, apparent reality, also known as conventional reality, because that's the reality we live in. So call it what you want, illusory, conventional, unreal, superimposition, loads of words for it, ultimately unreal, but that within the unreality, as long as we're in illusion and we think it's real, it's Sankhya. It's a Sankhya world. Whereas for Ramanuja, it's a real world. It really is there. It's not our projection. It's not an illusion. And it's a real Sankhya world. So they both accept the world as Sankhya, but Advaita says the world with its Sankhya is unreal ultimately, whereas Ramanuja would say, no, it's real, really real ultimately. Think about that, Jonathan, and think about that, and get back to me next week, and see if you want to follow up on that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, John, another Jonathan. We got Jonathans all over the place.
Yeah.
Are you real or unreal, Jonathan? Tell me, are you really there?
I'm real, and I tend to be vicious. Yes.
Okay.
But picking up on 33, verse 33, where the material creation is absorbed back.
Yeah.
My interest is what happens to the non-material manifestation, that is the Atman, the soul. Is that absorbed back? Because as you will know in the Gita, chapter 2, chapter 15, the soul is eternal. Or does it absorb back to the Paratman, or does it stay as eternal?
Well, there's a few different things here, and there's something that I've thought about, which may not be your question, but let me try to get to your question. No, it's absorbed back, but the gunas are real. They're just in a state of latency. They're not active. So the Atmans are still eternal, but they're under, presumably, the gunas of tamas particularly. So they're in a dormant state, like a hibernating bear, that sleeps for 6 months. And so the Atmans, as you say, they're eternal. They cannot cease to be. It's not like Christianity, which ex nihilo, they come from nothing and maybe go back into, they can't do that. So they're eternal. So therefore they, what do they do between the cycles? They're in a state just like deep sleep. It's exactly like deep sleep, where consciousness, the entire mind closes down. So therefore there's no memory, therefore there's no REM, therefore there's no dreams. So it's in a state of deep sleep that lasts whatever the billions of years are. And that would be, it's all the gunas, there's nothing else. So that would be the prominence of tamas would cause that state of it's not unawareness. It's not that consciousness loses its consciousness because it's eternally conscious. There's no such thing as an unconscious Atman, but the consciousness is covered just as it is in deep sleep by tamas.
They don't lose their individuality.
No. They never lose it. Only Advaita Vedanta they do. And then Advaita Vedanta has the problem that if you lose your individuality, how'd you get it back? Why wouldn't you be something? Why would the same individual come back if it's lost it? And if it doesn't come, and if it's not the same individual, and then why would it pick up the karma of that previous individual? So the Vaishnava Vishishtas will challenge Shankara on that one. You see, Shankara would say, even in deep sleep, forget about cosmic cycles, the Atman loses his individuality and actually merges into Brahman in deep sleep. Ramanuja would say, fine, but then why would it come back as the same person? It'll be another individual. And then why would it pick up the karma and everything else of the previous pre-sleep Atman? Problem for Advaita. Yeah. Now, the other interesting question is, what does it mean to be absorbed in Bhagavan?
Yeah.
Now, one of the great Vaishnava theologians, Madhava, doesn't like this. He says you can't have impurity within purity. Bhagavan is pure. If everything is absorbed in Bhagavan, in the karma and everything else, you've just inserted all this impure prakritic stuff in. No, he wants a total. He's a complete dualist, unlike Ramanuja's Vishishta, qualified non-dualism. Madhava, he doesn't like this. He says no. If you have qualifying, you've got evil and all the bad stuff in Vishnu. We don't want that. So he wants a radical dualism, that Prakriti is eternally distinct, the Atmans are distinct, and if they accept all the cosmic cycle, it's not going on in Vishnu, it's not reabsorbed in Vishnu. So he would say passages like that doesn't mean literally it goes into Vishnu's being, but somehow or other, it's sort of everything, it's like an extension of power, like the light of the sun. It's somewhat different than the sun, and everything sort of rests in the Shakti, but not in Vishnu himself. He wants to make that very clear. Just a side point, that's all. That's not what you were saying, but
No. It's very, very useful and helpful, and there's a lot more to it, but not time now. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And there are no more questions. We will wrap up, my friends. Quickie, anybody wants the last one? We got 4 minutes. Going. Jai Sri, Jai Sri, Jai Sri, Sri 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 Radhe Shyam. You've got to go mad at the end, my friends, if you want to be a bhakta. None of this serious jnana stuff. Have a great evening. Right, cheers. I'm just going to check the chats to see if there's anything I should know about. Right, take care.